This is Electric Universe Eyes, and today I'm going to narrate The Great Comet Venus by David Talbott, 1997, section titled Demons of Darkness. Let us consider the role of darkness, since the coming of cosmic night was reenacted at many different levels, from macrocosm to microcosm, from the deep night into which the world momentarily or symbolically sank at the end of the 52-year cycle, to the settling of darkness over the household every evening. It is not just a darkened sky that the fears reflect back to us, but the letting loose of the cometary chaos hordes, represented ritualistically by crowds of warriors and other participants adding through their dress and gestures the elements of commotion, disarray, and mock combat, these celebrants being as much a part of the commemorative occasion as the officiating priests or sacrificial victims. Do these images tell us something about an event far more terrifying than historians have dared imagine? The overlapping components of the darkness theme in rites reenacting celestial death and disaster are significant throngs of people shouting in confusion, running about with feathered ornaments, paper streamers waving in the wind, a pervasive fear that their children will be turned into mice, the fear that monsters with disheveled hair will rise out of the darkness to devour them, do in fact constitute a tapestry of cometary myths and symbols, and the repeated fears and gestures are not fixed to one rite or to one symbolic occasion, but to every level at which the darkness theme plays its part. In a significant mythical and symbolic sense, every day contained an aspect of the former disaster, the end of the world in microcosm. When dusk arrived, it came as a minor echo or reminder of the deep night, the twilight of the gods. Natives of pre-Columbian Mexico retired to their own dwellings and covered themselves as night descended. At night, the chaos demons were out, and children could be turned into mice. And while the people slept, it was the priest-astronomer's duty to monitor the heavens at dusk, midnight, and dawn to divine the course of events. Then in the morning, the obligatory sweeping of patios and walkways occurred symbolically, the sweeping away of the night. Not just the darkness, but the gathered dust and clutter filled a symbolic role in Mesoamerican daily life and ritual, together with the symbolism of the female head of the house as sweeper, a role defined by the mother goddess, Toki herself, whose broom is a prominent feature in the commemorative rites. No doubt the symbolism at the daily, microscopic level was diluted over time and progressively gave way to the growing complexities of culture and practical necessity. But the residue of an ancient and unrecognized experience was still there at the time of the conquest. The recollection of the cosmic night becomes more dramatic when an unusual occurrence of darkness breaks the normal pattern. Consider Sahugin's description of the people's response to an eclipse. Then there were a tumult and disorder. All were disquieted, unnerved, frightened. Then there was weeping. The common folk raised a cup, lifting their voices, making a great din, calling out, shrieking. There was shouting everywhere. People of light complexion were slain as sacrifices. Captives were killed. All offered their blood. They drew straws through the lobes of their ears, which had been pierced. And in all the temples there was the singing of fitting chants. There was an uproar. There were war cries. It was thus said, if the eclipse of the sun is complete, it will be dark forever. The demons of darkness will come down. They will eat men. In these fleeting moments of the eclipse, the people relived the unforgettable night, repeating the great din of the world-ending catastrophe and venting their fears of the all-devouring chaos hordes. Were these fears in origin different from the tempered fear of dusk, or differed from the terror aroused by the conclusion of the 52-year cycle? The same mythically rooted fears will be seen in relation to the eclipse of the moon. When the moon was eclipsed, his face grew dark and sooty. Blackness and darkness spread. When this came to pass, women with child feared evil. They thought it portentous. They were terrified, lest, perchance, their unborn children might be changed into mice. Each of their children might turn into a mouse. There was, in other words, an archetypal darkness with deeper and broader meaning than could be extracted from any single occasion, natural event, or commemorative rite. Alone, the symbols can only point ambiguously backwards to unrecognized trauma. But in combination, the symbols will provide a rich profile of the world-ending catastrophe accessible to any research willing to break free from a methodology that sees only fragments and looks to the fragments to provide their own meaning. The planet Venus would seem an unlikely candidate for sky-darkening powers, or for sky-clearing sweeping for that matter, and yet the remarkable Mesoamerican association of Venus with the eclipse has been documented by the vigorous research of Ev Cochran. Like most ancient peoples, the Maya considered eclipses of the sun to be a time of dire peril, Cochran writes. It was commonly believed, in fact, that the world might end during a solar eclipse. In the eclipse tables contained within the Dresden Codex, an eclipse is symbolized by the figure of a dragon descending from the glyph of the sun. On the relationship of the eclipse dragon to Venus, Cochran gives us the verdict of the eminent Mayan scholar Sir Eric Thompson. The head of the monster is hidden by a large glyph of the planet Venus. One is instantly reminded of the Aztec belief that during eclipses, the monsters called Tzitzimine or Sontamoc, head down, plunged earth from the sky. These monsters include Tezcatlipoca, the god of Venus as morning star. It is therefore highly probable that the picture represents a Tzitzimito plunging head down toward earth during the darkness of an eclipse. A glyph immediately above the picture appears to confirm this identification, for it shows the glyph of Venus with a prefix, which is a picture of a person placed upside down. A remote star could darken the entire sky? Here we see, in a clear profile, the dilemma for conventional study. Under the standard approach to this subject, the images are far too incredible to have any foundation in natural experience. Hence, they must be entirely fanciful. Hence, any attempt to see natural experience in these hieroglyphs would be preposterous. That is the fundamental circular reasoning on which modern understanding of myth and symbol has been constructed. As a result, the patterns suggesting deeper levels of coherence are not even noticed. What could never be is of no interest. So we do not realize that the fears of the darkness speak with one voice for a collective memory, that the later symbols of this fear were but shadows cast by a far greater terror when the whole sky became the theater for the twilight of the gods.